Start the meeting at this time, and we're going to have a roll call. And me here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm
Paul.
sorry. I'm
Yeah. Me, Dad.
here.
They're all here except Chris.
Okay. Did you hear from him?
Okay.
Madam
Okay.
Clerk, I'm sorry, can we just make sure that, so just, I want to identify the voting members, those who will be voting today.
Me.
Yeah. Me and Paul, myself, and Dieta. The three members.
And who's the third?
I'm the alternate, so I would only vote if one of them was not here.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, certification of the final canvases.
Is
One.
Okay,
Fox,
So,
I don't know if I'm gonna
we
go
have both the final canvas as well as the preliminary. There've been no objections to either. So here's the documentation.
And where are they?
This is the final canvases here.
Okay. We don't have
Does
to
anyone
sign
want to
this.
see the final canvas?
We don't have to sign any of
And
this.
approved with no problems that you're
Right.
aware of.
Correct. This has been in the town clerk's office, available for
Yeah.
public inspection.
And today's the 25th.
Yes, 25th.
This says the 23rd. I'm going to change it to the 25th.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hey.
if you all want to see.
We did.
Need a motion?
Yeah. Somebody make a motion that,
Make a motion that the final canvas be approved by the board.
Certification. Yeah, good.
your second.
Second.
Okay, Dieta second. All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I know that you're all together, but because we're on a Zoom, you have to do a roll call vote on these matters.
Do a roll call vote.
Yeah. Oh, Paul Amaral, voted yes.
Yes,
Dieta,
Yes.
Bobby Harris, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next is number 3.
No, number 2.
Number 2, I thought this was number 2.
No, that was just number 1.
Oh, okay. Number 2, the qualification certification of proposed electoral position. Mike,
Thank you, members of the board. I provided you with a memo regarding there are 2 elector budget proposal petitions that have been submitted in a timely fashion by 3 individuals. Mr. Justin Katz is one petitioner, and Ms. Palick and Farnsworth are the other petitioners. Based upon my review of those petitions, I believe that they do not qualify as elector petitions under the Home Rule Charter for the following reasons, and there's outlined in my memo to the board, but I'm here to answer any questions. I'll start with the Katz petition first. Mr. Katz, in his proposal, books $120,000 of revenue from the gaming, from gaming. And as you may be aware, as I attached to my memo, there's a specific ordinance that has been passed by the town council that has restricted the use of gaming revenue until fiscal year 2023. And therefore, that revenue cannot be used as a revenue source for any budget, whether it be the Budget Commission or the petitioner budget. In addition to that issue, there is also a allocation of approximately, I want to get the number straight. A $1.5 million increase over the use of the general fund over that which has been recommended by the Budget Commission. And the reason why I point that out is if you look at the charter section 301C, it indicates that a petitioner budget has to submit the following items. And one of those 301B1C says the dollar amount to raise by taxation, including maximum dollar amounts for the motor vehicle, real and tangible property, and resulting total property tax levies. My reading of the charter and the plain reading of the charter, in my opinion, limits petitioner budgets to raising money through dollars through taxation that's available through taxation only. So when he took, both petitions actually failed for this reason. When you take money out of the general fund, that's money that is not raised by taxation. That's in contrast to 301C2 of the charter, which does allow alternative budgets by the town council or school committee, and they are allowed to use non-tax levy sources for revenue. And if you think for the policy considerations of that, that's pretty clear. You just can't make revenue up out of thin air. So the town council can use non-tax revenue. They're allowed to do that. And the school committee can use educational aid. They're the only ones who can set that number because they're the ones who have the best information as to what that number would be. So Mr. Katz took out, uses $1.6 million out of the general fund, which is really a kind of a number that exists in thin air. And the Farnsworth Pollock proposal also takes additional money out of that fund. And I believe that amount is $1.6 million more than what the Budget Committee recommended. In addition, the Farnsworth Pollock proposal, I believe, exceeds the cap of school committees are allowed to present budgets which can only go, the local appropriation can only be increased by 104% over the previous years. This proposal by two school committee members, even though it's elector petition, this is the minority of the school committee, increases the budget by 107.92%, which I believe is also violates Rhode Island General Law 16-2-21C. So I have proposed in my memo findings of fact, which I would believe gives you the legal authority to reject these budget petitions as not being qualified. I do believe it is the role of the Board of Canvassers to certify a qualified petitioner elector petition, and for the reasons stated in my memo, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. I believe that these do not qualify as qualified elector alternative budget petitions.
Mike, I want to say that it was very clear to me in your memo. It was very well thought out and presented. I appreciate you taking the time to get us to that point. And I make a motion that we do not accept those two petitions.
But before you do that, and I'll be happy to answer questions, I do know that both I think some of the petitioners are online, and I think they do have a right to be heard. So I'd like the board to hear them out, and then you can make your decision.
Okay.
I believe Mr. Katz is, I see his name. Mr. Katz?
Hello, am I on? Can you hear me?
I'll be here in a minute. Hang on.
I see Justin Katz is in.
Yep.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Sir.
I'm not quite sure what the point is, because apparently per the motion that was already made before I got a chance to speak, which I almost didn't get a chance to do, you've already made a motion. Crazy. It's, I want to say for the record,
Mr. Katz, the motion
I
was
know,
not.
but it's an indication of where this is going. There's a memo out there. Excuse me, I have the floor.
Mr. Katz, before you make a statement, the motion was not seconded, and the board has not made any formal decision as of yet.
Well, they have a memo that I had not been privy to. I've not been notified that this might be happening. That's a ridiculous thing. It's ridiculous that I still can't appear before you in person. None of you are wearing masks. You're all together. This is ridiculous. So I've said this before, and I want to repeat. I do not agree. I do not believe the Board of Canvassers has the right to be blocking petitions just because somebody told the solicitor that they don't like it and to find a reason to block it. That's not, you don't have the authority to judge petitions by their content. That's outside of your authority. And the fact that I wouldn't get to see this memo and rebut it is further evidence of what a sham this really is. Now, to the solicitor's point, the idea that a petitioner's budget cannot touch revenue is outlandish. We've done this for 10 years again and again. Maybe I know I've put in petitions that have won and have become the budget of the town that use non-tax revenue. Maybe every budget that's won for the past 10 years has done the same. I'd have to go back and check, but again, I haven't had time to do that because nobody warned me this was going to be happening. It's never been done this way before. That's just how you get to the tax revenue. You estimate the other revenue, and what remains to be collected is taxation. It's that simple. We've done it every single time. And just as the town clerk has suddenly changed the rules to block 2 other petitions, now we're changing the rules to block more petitions because the town council wants its 4% tax increase to slide right through with no competition. So regarding the gaming revenue, first of all, I don't agree that the town council can block revenue from getting on the ballot, but that's an assumption in the budget. I'm going to be taking out a petition to overrule that provision of the town that overrule that ordinance. And if that were to pass, then the money would become available. No problem. It's an assumption in the budget. It ought to be permitted to stand. And as far as the 3% threshold or taking money out of general revenue, all of this money, and we've done this every year, is only estimated what will come in. It doesn't commit. We've had this discussion when I was on the budget committee with the then solicitor who tried something similar and then backed down off of it. It doesn't commit the town to do anything. It's an estimate. If the money comes in short, if the money's not in the general fund surplus, then it's a matter of the town council figuring out how it's going to address that. This is every budget does this. We're looking at this year for millions and millions of dollars that the town government has kept off the books and hidden from taxpayers at the FTR. There'd be nowhere's coming in. There's going to be another 800,000 coming in this year from stimulus money. The General Assembly in this budget doubled the amount of money we're going to get from gambling revenue. This is all money they've kind of kept quiet so that they can pass their big tax increase, the biggest one in 10 years, 11 years, I think. It's just wrong what you're doing here. And the Board of Canvassers does not have this authority. I know every year, sometimes you listen to solicitor, sometimes you don't, depending on whose side you're on. You don't have that authority. This is just outlandish and following on the heels of the town clerk blocking 2 other petitions. I don't even know if we can count our town as a representative democracy anymore. You just do whatever you want. It's crazy. Approve these budgets. Let the voters speak. If there are problems with them, bring it up at the town hearing, and then people who are concerned about that can vote for the other budgets if they want to.
Thank you, Mr. Katz. I just want to point out for the record, Mr. Katz made a representation that the town clerk blocked 2 other petitioners' budgets. That was the case, and her ruling was upheld by a Superior Court judge for a hearing. So that's just to let the board know. I believe I see at least someone from the law firm of LaPlante Solar Goldman, I believe represents the other petitioner budget. I think if he wants to be heard, can you let them in, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Mike. Jeff Soa. How you doing?
How are you? Good to see you.
Very good. I'm obviously here on behalf of Deb Palish and Diane Farnworth. She's also, I know Deb at least is on here too. I don't know if she can be unmuted as well, because I think she'll have a couple of points to make after I make my points.
Okay.
And so I in part, I'm going to piggyback on what Justin Katz just said. There's nothing that implicates constitutional process more so than an election. And these petitions certainly trigger constitutional process. So the big concern that I have primarily, at least to begin, is that the petition by Ms. Palish and Ms. Farnworth was filed 13 days ago. I've had numerous communications with the clerk advising that we were going to be attending this meeting, yet we have received absolutely no notice whatsoever about these alleged concerns. It's a major concern, the inability to be able to respond on the spot by not being notified, when in fact the board was provided with a memoranda apparently outlining reasons for the qualifications, is of great concern. It's a violation of constitutional due process, unquestionably. As it relates to the actual petition itself, it's compliant with every component of the town charter. This is very comparable to a matter that occurred 2 years ago when this same board voted on a matter and approved the petition because the only issue was a mathematical error apparently within the petition. But in this case, there are no mathematical errors. Every component of the charter was complied with. So the other arguments that Mr. Katz made, again, similar to this situation, historically, these issues that Attorney Marcello has raised, and this is where Ms. Palish will speak, for the entire history of these petitions, these budget petitions, the exact same monies were utilized. I also want to point out, even though I just heard this argument 5 minutes ago, with respect to the contention that the minority of the school committee filed this petition, that's simply untrue. Ms. Palish and Ms. Farnworth are individual tax-paying members. This is an elector petition. So the statute that Mr. Marcello referenced is completely inapplicable to this particular petition. Ms. Palish, I may have a couple more points, but if you want to identify for the board the financial component, if she could be.
Do we have the ability to share anything? Because again, you know, as you know, Attorney Soa indicated, we've sort of been hearing rumors and trying to guess what the arguments were going to be for like days and days now. So we tried to, you know, come up with every reason and sort of packages for you guys, but we were not afforded the opportunity to give you any information. So I don't know if I can share my screen or if you just want me to walk through a worksheet.
It's up to the board. I would not have any objection if you'd like to share. Again, this notice.
Can we let in Diane?
Yeah, I'm prepared to share my screen as well.
He's already in.
Do I have the option to share?
Yeah, let me bring you as a panelist first.
Thank you.
And again, I would just remind all the petitioners that is your obligation to comply with the charter as written. So we may disagree what that charter says or does, but it's.
But again, Attorney Marcello, I'd love for you to point out where in the charter the particular contentions that you're making exist.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll be happy to do that for you, Mr. Soa. So again, 301B1 indicates that a petitioner budget has to have the dollar amount to raise by taxation, including maximum dollar amounts for the motor vehicle, real and tangible property, and resulting total property tax levy. That is a limit on their power, which differs from 301C2, which gives the school committee and the town council the ability to use non-taxation revenue. So that's the distinction, Mr. Soa.
And then the other piece that I want to know is where in the charter does it indicate that the board has an ability to assess the qualification of these petitions?
Yeah, so the electors have to approve qualified petitions, and based upon what has been happened in the past, as Mr. Katz has indicated, the Board of Canvassers has historically passed upon the qualifications of petitioner budgets.
So there's no actual written jurisdiction within the charter. Is that what you're?
No, I'm not conceding that point. It says they have to vote on and certify qualified elector petitions. And so the word qualified would seem to imply, or at least strongly suggest that they have the authority to determine whether or not something is qualified or not.
Isn't that something that the voters should be voting on?
That's what the charter says, and that's what the voters approve when they approve the charter. I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't know who's on the.
Oh, okay. It's Diane Farnworth. So can everyone see my screen okay? And can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So in anticipation, and really, I guess, lucky guess on our part, we did indeed anticipate that there would be objections to our petition. We don't agree with those objections, and I do want to point out that the petition that we have submitted is pretty much in line with several previous petitions as far as its structure is concerned. And I'm speaking particularly to the amount of the fund balance drawdown. And the FTR has afforded several petitioners, as well as the budget committee, to go ahead and draw down uncommitted general funds. So what we've done is we've put together a little bit of a spreadsheet here. The first column showing the particular budget years that are under discussion, with, of course, FY22 being the budget we're discussing right now. The adopted expense budgets are in the next two columns, right? So for fiscal 17, 18, and 21, we had, first of all, a petitioner's budget that was adopted, and then 2 years of budget committee adoptions. And you have the total expense budgets, because based upon those expense budgets, the charter requires a 3% set aside of uncommitted general funds. So when we take the uncommitted general funds at the beginning of those years and we calculate that 3% set aside, the column in yellow is what would be available for further drawdown from the uncommitted general fund. It has been the practice of the if you skip over a couple of columns to the one that says adopted drawdown commitment, with the top row saying 150,000, the second 98,000, the third 1,000,006, and then finally the last 2.2, which is what we have represented in our petition. There is sufficient funds in the uncommitted general fund to affect these drawdowns. And that is the calculation that has been used over and over again. If there is any contention that we need to set aside what is previously committed to the prior year budget, then each and every one of these would not have been applicable and able to go to voters. However, they did. Deb, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, can I share my screen, please?
I'm not sure. Do I need to do anything? Okay, you got it.
So again, because we were trying to think of every iteration that, because we weren't noticed, what Mr. Marcello is telling you today is petitioners cannot draw down the general fund, that only the town council, budget committee, town council, school committee is, but that is simply not true. If you look at column J, 16, 17, 20, these were all adopted drawdown commitments that were done via petition. Let me just pull up one more thing for you, please. If you look at this, this is actually a certified docket. This is Nancy Mello's stamp on the bottom. Here is the 3% calculation. Here is the petitioner, which happens to be Mr. Katz. Here is his calculation of the drawdown. Here is his proposed drawdown that year. And this, in fact, was accepted, was on the ballot, was put before the voters. So I don't know how you all can reject a petition that followed 301 to the letter. There's 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, get 50 signatures. We did all that. And to now be saying, you know, we had one set of rules years 1 through 9, and now in year 10, Mr. Marcello is telling us, no, we have a new set of rules. It's very similar to 2019 that, you know, these petitions that allow general fund drawdowns, these have been allowed since we started the FTR. General fund drawdown changes were allowed as part of the FTM. I mean, this is representative democracy in Tiverton. This has been, you know, allowed forever. So, you know, I'm just at aghast at the new rule setting that seems to be, you know, occurring. You know, we as petitioners, and I'll fight for everyone's right to petition, Mr. Katz, anybody that comes behind me. We followed the rules. We followed the rules that were laid out. And now we're hearing in the 9th inning that, you know what, you're at the Yankees game and the Yankees are going to say you need 6 strikeouts to get the Sox out, not 3. I mean, you're changing the rules of the game, guys. You just, you know, with all due respect to Mr. Marcello, you know, you can't be changing the rules. And I mean, the fact that you're suggesting that 2 school committee members as citizens can't put on a petition when our very charter allows it. The very charter in section 301 says there is nothing to stop, you know, elected bodies from, you know, going out and getting a petition. So I think the big thing is, guys, here, this is just like 2019, that you can't introduce new rules, new math. You know, in the 11th hour, we did everything we needed to do. We did everything 301 told us to do. The other question that I have, just really, really quickly, Mr. Marcello, did you put the same kind of scrutiny over the budget committee's docket?
You're on mute.
Mike, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
Sorry. Sorry about that. The answer is my reading of what the budget committee did. The budget committee complied with the charter requirements as set forth. They have a lot more discretion because they're an elected body and they have a lot more authority and a lot less limits than as my reading of the charter.
Okay, well, here's why I bring it up. And I didn't know this until Sanford Mentel, who we all know knows this process better than most, called me a couple of days ago and said, you know, what's going on with the budget committee budget? The language isn't the same as the detail. And in fact, he's correct. If you look at their tax levy language, it does not match their detail. It does not match the votes they took in committee. So you have this, you know, issue where the ballot being put before the voters actually doesn't even represent that 11-member body's votes. Now, I would think,
Alec, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I would assume that if that were the case, that we would hear from the budget committee. We have not heard from the budget committee since their budget has been submitted.
I'm happy to show you. I'm happy to prove it to anyone that wants to see it. Again, we weren't.
Again, the body that would be making that objection would be the budget committee itself, and we have not heard from them.
So the budget committee is going to call you and tell you we did it wrong, and if they don't, it's okay.
If there's a concern that they have done something wrong, then they have not brought it to anyone's attention, including myself.
Well, I'm bringing it to your attention that I would think the fact that you have a ballot question before you that doesn't represent the votes of the 11, you know, member board and doesn't match the detail. Again, I'm okay with it going on and letting the people decide. My point is really just, once again, just like we were back in 2019, we are subjecting these citizen petitions to a level of scrutiny that we aren't, you know, that is not being equally and fairly applied across the board to anything that's going before the voters.
I appreciate
I want them all to go before the voters. We all followed the process. We all did the best we can. 301 says, put forth this ballot question. I need a municipal, I need a school, I need a tax levy, I need the voter vehicle increase, I need an increase in percent. Get your 50 signatures, and we got over, we got 130. And, put these before the voters and let them decide. Keep changing these rules every 2 years because we have a new solicitor. Please, Board of Canvasser members, this is, if it feels like Groundhog Day, because it is. This is 2019 all over again.
And it really triggers an equal protection issue. It really does. I hope the board's aware of the equal protection implications of treating different parties differently.
Jeff, thank you, Mr. Soa. So I will tell the petitioners. Obviously, the board hasn't even made a decision yet, so I don't know so they have to make their own decision based upon. But it is my obligation to show them and to give them a legal memorandum based upon my reading of the charter. I will say that up until last week, there was an alternate reading of the charter as to when petitions were actually due. And the court actually agreed with a cutoff date that allegedly never existed before. And I don't want to paraphrase the court because I don't like to do that, but the court, it was very clear that just because you do something wrong for 20 years doesn't mean on the 21st year we're going to allow it to happen if it's brought to someone's attention. So
you're suggesting that every citizen petition has to go to court? What a shame! What a shame!
I'm suggesting that every citizen petition has to comply with the requirements of the charter.
And I'd like to say that I don't see that things are changing. I just see that we're looking at things more clearly and more specifically as they're being administered.
But Miss Moran, in all due respect, let's change the language then so everybody knows going in what these clarification and these rules are. It should go before the town council.
It's all there. There's nothing to change. It's just a matter of, are you going to have a strict interpretation? Are you going to have a whimsical interpretation as they've had in the past?
But for 9 years, petitions have been allowed to change revenues and change the general fund drawdown. So you're saying that this isn't a change, but it is. We followed the rules as they were laid out for us. We followed the rules. Had Mr. Marcello come out ahead of time and said, I have looked at this charter language and here is how I'm going to interpret it, which would have been very much appreciated.
Yeah,
I would have complied. I would have followed that.
Ms. Palick, it's obvious. We obviously disagree, but that's fine. The reality is I couldn't even render an opinion until such time as petitioner budgets were submitted. So I have no idea what someone might or might not do. So it's hard for me to react to something out of thin air.
Which reinforces the fact, Attorney Marcello, that there's no rules regarding these issues. There's nothing that's given to these petitioners in advance so they can comply. That actually you're making my point at the end of the day. And there is no jurisdiction for the board to disqualify this petition. I just looked through the entire charter. What you're representing in this meeting is not what's stated in the charter.
Well, Mr. So we agree. We agree to disagree on that.
We don't disagree. It's in writing, or it's not in writing.
Okay. The Board of Canvassers has the authority and the ability to certify qualified elected petitions, and it's up to them to determine whether or not these petitions are qualified.
So if you could read that section in the proper context, I'd love to hear where you're reading that from.
The qualified elected budget proposals in accordance with section 301B1 submitted by elected petition in accordance with 301D shall appear on the ballot in the order determined by the Board of Canvassers Latter-day. So qualified, it's the adjective qualified, Mr. Soa, that it gives this board, in my opinion, the ability to reject petitions as they have done in the past. Mr. Chairman, I believe that Mr. Cotter would like to be heard if that's possible.
Chris, you're on mute.
Chris,
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Well, there's been a lot of discussion of late of, that the rules are changing. The rules haven't changed. The rules have always been there. I do remember being at many of these charter review committee meetings very early on as this charter was created. And this was a huge bone of contention years ago, and it still is, to allow a petitioner to simply make up revenue out of thin air. When we started the budgetary process, we had an audited number that we utilized that came from our treasurer and from our auditors. And when you take out the balance of the unaudited and apply the amount that was applied for this year, it left $640,000. There's no way there's $1.6 million left. There's no way there's $1.5 million left until it gets audited again. And there is an ordinance on the books about gaming revenue that limits that only to the use of the town council at the moment. So those monies are not available to be used in the budget process. The budget committee alone tried to utilize those monies and were denied and kept them out of the budget, even though there were votes to try to reinstate it. And I do understand that there may be a petition to try to overrule that ordinance, but that's at the current time, the law of the land is the gaming money is not available to be utilized for the budget. To simply make up 1.6 or $1.5 million out of the general fund, if that money is not there, we are going to have to re-tax people to generate that. These rules have been in existence for years. It's just that they may not have been liberal or technically applied the way that they're being interpreted now. They are clear as day if you read this, that the only entity that has the ability, once the budget committee is done, of adjusting non-tax revenues is the town council, because the town council would be the most intimate entity familiar with how the town operates as to what revenues may or may not be available. Other entities or petitioners don't have that knowledge. They don't have the inner workings of how the community is working and what those monies are or what the balances are. So what's next? Dog fees are going to go from $50,000 a year to $450,000? I mean, that's why they're not allowed to utilize non-tax revenues. You can't simply make up numbers to make your budget work. The only entity that has that ability, according to the charter, is the town council. If there was a change in the school aid, the education department, the school system is allowed to put in an alternate budget during that first week after the budget committee is done. If they have more accurate information about what school aid will be, and they can justify it through memos from the governor's office and the State Department of Education that that state aid number will change, they can obviously change that number, but they cannot change other non-tax revenues. They can only change those of which they have privy to or knowledge of. So the rules haven't changed. Simply because you've gone through a red light, twice or three times and gotten away with it, doesn't mean you're going to forever get away with it. The rules are being interpreted now to construct exactly the way this charter was created, to stop this from happening so that the community as a whole doesn't get harmed.
Can I just say, Mr. Cotta, with all due respect, we're not making up revenue. The charter says 3% of the general fund must be held to cover the current operating expense. So you take the current operating expense and you take 3%, and that money must be held in general fund. That money is held in the general fund per our petition. As far as Chris, as far as the committed money from last year, if you follow that math, last year's budget from the budget committee would be illegal. There was not 1.6 million for them to take because there was a commitment from 614,000 from the prior year that the treasurer had still not released. In fact, I have minutes, if you'd like to see them, that in July, she warned the budget committee that her numbers would not be final until the end of August. And she warned the budget committee that she was hopeful that money would be there. Yet on August 10th, they voted a drawdown. So if you're saying that it's above and beyond that 3%, there's numerous budgets in the past, including last year when Mr. Marcello was the solicitor, that would have been illegal. We're not making up money, revenue. This is general fund is there. So when it was done last year, and you are somewhat in context with this, is that the council president did at that time make that offer with the budget committee, because they were the only legal entities left. Actually, it was the only budget committee was the only legal entity left. And there was no petition of budget last year. So it was done by the budget committee, which was done before any of these alternate budgets or petition of budgets were done. And it was done at the suggestion of the town council president. So but the town council president, Chris, does not represent the entire body. You know that. One person does not speak for the body.
It's still a council member.
It doesn't matter. One person doesn't. I mean, again, you guys,
you can literally interpret the way you see it.
You're throwing stuff. You're throwing stuff up to keep these petitions off the docket because.
I'd like to say one thing.
And I'm sorry, Bobby. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mrs. Andrea would like to say something.
I just want to say first and foremost, Mr. Marcello, thank you very much for putting this together. It is obvious that you did spend time and due diligence on this memo, so thank you for that. In reading it, I would like to point out there is a big difference between the reasons for rejecting both. The reason for rejecting the first alternate budget, the Mr. Katz petition, is the fact that it violates our town charter in regards to wanting to access the gaming money that is restricted until FY23. So that is a definitive against our town charter.
That's just to correct you, Madam Member. It is it's violative of an ordinance, not the charter, but a validly passed ordinance.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification. The second petitioner budget, the Farnworth Polish budget proposal. Your notes are more that it's the concern that it's more against state general law than our town charter. My thing is, and listening to everybody in this, yes, things may have been done inappropriately, but, and this goes back to other events, our town charter is not always clear, and it has not always coincided with state law. We've known this, we have been dealing with this for eons. This is something that has to be dealt with on a town charter level, on a commission level. So my thought is, and this is just my thought again, everybody's here, so I'm not voting, but my thought is if the Farnworth College proposal fits within the parameters of our town charter, which from all likelihood it does, and again, we've been following precedent, and I totally understand the whole thing that even if it's been done wrong for 20 years, not to continue that. But they have fulfilled all the requirements of our town charter. And the concern that you put in the memorandum regarding the Rhode Island General Law 16-2-21C, it was that it exceeded the 104% cap. There are two petitioners that, yes, are members of the school committee, but they do not constitute a majority and a quorum of the school committee. So I just wanted to make that point, that it would not, to me, in my reading of this, that would not become an issue.
So I want to just point out that the Farnsworth Palick proposal also, in my opinion, violates the charter because it does use non-tax revenues in their proposal. It's $1.6 million of the general fund. So that is similar. That is similar, exactly similar. Actually, not even similar. That is the same as the Katz proposal. The Katz proposal does have an extra error in it, in my opinion, because it does use revenues from gaming revenue, which was off the table, not only for petitioner budgets, but for the budget committee itself. So yes, I agree that my memo does rely on state law on the 104% cap, but it also, in my opinion, the Palick proposal also violates the charter because it does use non-tax revenues from the general fund. So I don't want you to lose sight of that fact as well.
Chris, you got some?
So just to address a little bit of what Andrea had just mentioned about a petitioner. When a petitioner budget comes in and sets aside the budget committee's budget and or an alternate budget by the school department, they're actually sitting as the body who is funding education. So that, to me, they're held at the same standard as the school committee. They're funding education, and they should be held to the same standard, state law-wise, as we would for everything else that we do. So if there is a mandate that the education local appropriation can't exceed by 4%, that same state law should apply to a petitioner as well. And while it doesn't say that in the law, nobody expects petitioner budgets to be put in. Also, as it relates to that, none of these budgets, petitioner budgets, wind up going through the Office of Municipal Finance to be vetted for the protection of taxpayers, as we have to do on behalf of the town when we put them through the budget committee and or the town council. So I do think that that state law is applicable to a petition.
So
Can I, Andrea, oh, no, go ahead, I'm sorry. Can I share that state law?
Chris, I absolutely agree with you in the fact that, yeah, that
You're not coming
petitioner
over.
budgets aren't put through vetting, and I made that as a bone of contention for years. So I completely agree with you on that. I'm just reading in our memorandum about the fact that if the two petitioners are members of the school committee whose majority was subject to the 104% cap, they're not the majority of the school committee. That's my only point in referencing that.
No, I get that, and I think that's the same point that Mike made in his, that's why he alluded to the fact that they are minority members, but they, they are truly just petitioners at this point.
I will concede that, I mean, it's an open issue whether or not anybody would be subject to the state law about that cap. In other words, does it make sense from a policy perspective to have a law that caps the spending of education 104%, but then it will allow a taxpayer group, another group to go exceed that cap? And honestly, I pointed out the difference. It is an open question in the law. It's never been decided. I have found no current case law that would indicate one way or the other whether a petitioner budget or an FTM could exceed that cap. So
Could I just quickly read one part of that law? Or share it?
Yes,
Bobby, did you say I could share it?
yes.
So here's this law that we're talking about with the 4%. Here's the section down here. It talks about the 4%. I'm conceding that, but it says, if the amount appropriated by the town meeting, the city or town council or budget referendum is either more or less than the amount recommended and requested by the school committee, the school committee shall have 30 days to comply. Why would they say either more or less if you could never go more than? That's my only point.
I know Mr. Katz also has additional comments. So whatever that's worth. I don't know if we're all on mute or not muted or what.
it's up to the chair. Okay.
Thank you all.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I just want to address some of the things that were said. First, what we're seeing here is not you got away with running some green lights or red lights and now we're going to bust you for it. What we're seeing here is now the cop saying, oh no, we just changed that yesterday. The law actually says the green lights are the ones you have to stop on. That's what has changed. The substance of the law has changed with no due process whatsoever. The people who wrote this provision in the charter intended it this way. The prior town clerk enforced it this way for 10 years. Now we're going to change it, and prior solicitors, now we're going to change it. Where'd this language come from? It's out of thin air. You're just making it up. As far as the gambling revenue, now, even if I concede the ordinance is valid and I have to abide by it, which I don't, but even if I did, my budget I'm not forcing the town council to use it. I can assume that they will. They may not. They would have to find another way to make up that $120,000, which in fact, and I don't know if this is the mistake that Ms. Palish was talking about a minute ago in the budget committee. I only took the file from the budget committee that they were about to hand in and changed the numbers to that. At that point included the 120,000. I look now, the one on the website has changed and they kind of shoved money from other revenue accounts to make up the same amount so they could take that out. I don't know when that happened. That'll make for an interesting investigation. But the point is, that is exactly what the town council can do. If the money if they decide the $120,000 for the gambling revenue should not be used for that, which is their prerogative by the ordinance, if it survives a repeal. But if they decide that $120,000 should be used for something else, they can go with the other line items that the budget committee themselves adjusted in order to make up for that mistake. So there's nothing new here. I just took the budget committee's docket, changed the number, and that is it. The fact that they found other ways to pretend there was going to be $120,000 from somewhere else just means that the same money is available already. That's all I wanted to say. Oh, and regarding, not for mine, but regarding the comment earlier about how there's no authority for electors to use this money. That's just not true. In 301D1, in the middle, the electors put in the budget and what line items they change. That's revenue and that's expense. That's, you can change the revenue line items. That's clear in the charter, and that's why we've always done it that way. And it's the same thing that goes for Mr. Kata saying, oh, well, you're just making up numbers. You can't make up numbers. The town council knows best. Well, then you couldn't do anything because supposedly the town council knows best what's needed for each expense on the budget. You can't say revenue is one thing and expense is another. That's just, I mean, and this is all so clear, and it's all so clear, which is why we've followed this process for a decade. Green light means you can go through it. You can't just suddenly say, no, clearly the law means a green light means stop. That's just not the way the law should work, and it's an outrage if you go through with this.
I think also members of the board that some members of the public wish to speak, if you're so inclined to allow that to happen. I know you allowed Mr. Cotta to speak. Not really clear where his standing was to speak, but in any event, I would request that the members of the public be allowed to speak.
Well, I think as the town administrator, he has an authority to speak on behalf of the town.
I believe we have a Mr. Larkin out in attendee land with his hand up.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, Joe.
Okay, so first, thank you for letting me speak. Obviously, I'm coming before you only as a private citizen and elector. And thank you for doing this work. I know, I guess pretty personally how thankless it can be. So a couple things about the lack of notice and maybe due process based on the solicitor's memo. So he is, I believe, the fourth solicitor we've had in place in the last 5 years. And just to give you an example of how the goalposts get moved, we were told by the solicitor before last that the school committee could not change its number. And yet we have an interpretation offered today that it could if the school committee had chosen to submit a budget on its own authority as allowed by the charter. So what does that mean? It really means that in this way, we're kind of allowing the solicitor not just to render an opinion, but really to guide the board of canvassers. He's or she, whoever it may be, is set up as judge and jury, and they wind up making new law or new charter really without any authority ever specified in the charter that they have that capacity. So my second point is that while the charter may be vague, the one thing that the charter is absolutely crystal clear on is that an elector or petitioner should be allowed to submit a budget before the voters if they go through the process as it is spelled out in the charter. Now that spelling out may be in fact vague, but the requirements are clear themselves. Moreover, there is no mechanism allowed in the charter for challenging a petitioner's budget. The reason for that is I believe that the point of the charter is to allow the voters to decide. If you make a decision to not allow these petitioners on, then I think you're really subverting the charter. And again, you're doing that through a process which is not contemplated, not specified, really not consistent with the charter, which is to allow the solicitor or whatever person you deem to have authority to sort of say, well, this is what it means, or this is what the charter is supposed to do. What the charter is supposed to do really, and again, I think this is the thing that is most clear in the charter. The charter is trying to allow petitioners to put before the voters alternatives to what is generated by the budget committee. Thank you.
Okay. I have something. Any more of them? Board won't have anything to say? Paul?
No, sir, I'm sorry.
Deanna? No. At this time, we just keep hearing the same thing over and over and over, and we're not getting nowhere. So I'd just like to make a motion, we adjourn this. and continue on with the budget. I mean,
Agenda.
the agenda.
You need to close
Yes.
discussion.
Yes,
Question.
sure.
Mr. Solicitor, do you
Yes.
have any response to what's been said by folks that have had input?
Sure. So it's my job to interpret the charter as again, the words of the charter have not changed. I agree with that 100%. And I gave you what I believe was a thorough memo indicating what I believe the charter says and what it mandates. I understand that there may have been different procedures or interpretations of that charter in the past. That doesn't make that interpretation right or correct. I gave you a good faith basis, legal basis of believing that my opinion is correct. And it's a legal opinion. I'm not a judge. Neither is Mr. Katz, and no offense to my good friend, Mr. So, and neither is he. So lawyers, argue about words. And I gave you what the clear words of that charter say. You are free now to take my opinion and agree with it, or you can disagree with it. But I gave you what I believe is a good faith basis of indicating why these petitioner budgets, which are subject to the language of the charter, should be rejected. And if there is a disagreement over that your ruling or whatever you rule, there's an appeal process that can be used and that's available to any petitioner who's here today. So I respect the fact that we disagree, but I believe I gave you a good faith legal basis and a thorough basis as to why I believe the charter says and mandates what it does. And other than that, it's in your good hands to make the decision. But I stand by the opinion that I gave you.
Mr. Marcello, I thank you for your comments, and I'd also like to thank everyone else, those individuals that went through all that hard work to present the petitioner's budget, and in appreciation of their comments here today as well. I thank you all.
You have anything?
No, I just go back to my original motion, hoping that it's going to get seconded and we can have a vote.
Could you repeat the motion, please?
Yes, given the rate of the solicitor's comments on his memo, I make a motion that the two petitioners' budgets are rejected.
Second.
All those in favor?
Got to do a roll call.
You have to do a roll call.
No. Paul?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Aye. Myself? Bobby Harris?
Yes, Bobby Harris.
Okay,
Motion passes.
motion passes. Next on the agenda is certification of mail ballot applications.
We're on number 5.
No, we're number 3, Bobby. We're number 3 about the signatures.
Oh, okay.
Aren't we?
No,
No, we're not.
because you rejected the elector
Oh,
petitions.
okay.
Yeah.
So we do the lottery.
That,
Mr. Chairman, based upon your vote on number 3 and 4 were not applicable at this time.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Have a motion on them? Certification of proposed elector petition signatures and lottery of the ballot placements.
So those two are not
Not
valid.
applicable.
They're
Yeah,
not applicable. So we're going to number 5.
okay, that's right, you're right. Thanks, Chris.
number 5.
Mhm.
So certification of final FTR ballot includes the budget proposal and the budget committee resolutions and the town council resolutions.
Did we see those before?
They were in the backup.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't. Sorry.
So the first one, and you can,
Okay.
is the budget committee
Yeah,
ballot,
Mhm.
budget committee proposal.
yeah. You want to take it one by one, or go for all 3 of them?
Do it one at a time. I
Okay,
would say, so we'd have to have a vote on each one
yeah.
separately.
Yeah, okay. Okay, the budget proposal, do I hear a motion on that?
I make a motion that we accept the budget proposal as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Wait, all those in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
all of us.
Aye.
okay.
Okay. The next is the budget committee resolution.
Yes, here's a separate document for your certification,
Yeah.
if you could.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask that you go back for a second on the Ms. Dietta's motion? I would appreciate if the board in rejecting the motion, excuse me, could articulate the reasons why they rejected the petition of budgets for the record, so it's clear for if in case there's a reviewing court as to.
They weren't compliant with the charter.
Okay, and based upon the, I'm assuming you're relying upon the findings in the proposed findings in my
Yes.
memo.
Exactly.
I just want to make sure that can the record reflect that all the rest of the board agrees with that, Madam Clerk.
You agree with that, Paul?
Yes, Mr. Marcello, I reviewed your findings, and I agree. I voted as such.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear for the record. Thank you, Deanna. Sorry to interrupt.
And I do believe that Deetta did make it part of her motion.
Yeah.
Based upon
Your memo.
your memo.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Then I missed that.
Is that correct?
Thank you.
Let's check with Christine. She made it as part of the motion.
The next one is town council resolution.
We don't have a motion yet for the budget committee.
So we do.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
I'm in bad enough shape.
Okay, so here is the 3 town council resolutions.
Okay.
And again, all this information has been on the website as well as in your backup.
Yeah.
packet.
The budget, does the resolutions come with that, or is that a separate motion?
It's
So
separate.
we should do, that's the town council or the.
That's the town council.
I think
Did
we
you-
need a motion
Need a
to
motion.
approve the budget committee resolutions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think there was a,
You
a
pass
motion
it
on that.
around, but yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So we would need a motion for the budget to certify the budget committee resolutions for the FTR ballot.
Make a motion that we accept the budget committee resolutions as presented.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Bobby Harris,
Aye.
and Deanna. We just did the town council resolution, didn't we?
No,
we
we
didn't vote
also
on it.
need a motion for the town.
We're jumping
council
all around
resolution.
here. Anyway.
We didn't sign this.
Oh, did-
I
oh,
didn't sign
Deanna?
it. Probably must have ripped it out of my hand.
No, I did not.
And the date wasn't on it either. I think I'll ever get my signature back. No, I don't think so either.
So do we have a motion on the town council resolutions?
No, yeah.
Make a motion that town council resolutions be accepted as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Tony, Mr. Amaral, myself, and
Yes.
yeah,
And you're a yes?
yes.
Okay.
The next is certification of mail ballot applications.
Right past page you had to sign. Is Andrea signing?
I thought I was the only one that needed to sign it. Are they all signed? Did Andrea sign the one I just signed? I thought I was the only one that hadn't signed it. Sorry. Yeah, okay.
All set, you're all set?
Mhm.
Okay, so we have certification of. Yeah. That's this.
And God, how many do we have?
So this is certification of mail ballot applications received. So we'll have to separate these, but this is the 25 so far.
Oh, okay.
So this is the list of the 25 and then in individual
Okay.
packets.
Initial here or something.
You'll have to sign each of these.
Each one, yeah. But usually there's one at the bottom, isn't there?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna sign second because you're the big guy, Bob.
We don't have to, but we don't have to name each ballot application.
I will make a motion after I sign.
Now, they do with these mail ballot applications, they do have until July 2nd at 4 o'clock to submit. So if there are more after this, then we'll have to have a meeting
Yeah,
to
okay.
adjust additional mail ballot applications.
So where is the state now on IDs? Voter IDs?
I was saying that.
I know, but I was just, I saw a name and it said, I said, oh my.
Is that one for you, Bobby?
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah.
that name's in my family. That name's in my genealogy. That's sad.
Is it Russian or Portuguese?
No.
I was trying to think, I was someplace not too long ago, they wouldn't accept my signature. It's so different.
Thank you.
I get steps. That's all good.
That's it for you. There.
Oh, okay.
That was the last one.
Oh, okay. And that was 6, right? Yeah. Mhm. Now we get to the fun part.
We still need a motion.
Oh.
Yeah, once.
I make a motion that we accept the mail ballot applications as signed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Paul, Bobby, and Deanna.
The next item on the agenda is the discussion of the FTR July 17, 2021. We've already reached out and to the poll workers. So you have the list of poll workers that are assigned at the high school for the Saturday election. And also we have the 2 days of absentee voting. So we have 2 people for each day on the 15th and the 16th. So you have that in your packet.
And that's here, right?
Yeah.
The 2 days are at the town hall.
Oh, yes, correct.
John, do you need Zoom meetings? I know every election we've done, we set up the board of canvases on the day of the election, like early in the morning,
Mhm.
but then again later at night.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We can't run a Zoom meeting all day.
Correct.
So I'll set those up for you.
Yes,
Yeah,
Is
please.
there any other meetings you need to have set up for Zoom?
As I
Unless you
said,
have more absentees or.
July 2nd is the last day for the mail-in ballot application. So if there are more, then we'll have to need to schedule another meeting with the Board of Canvassers to go over the remainder
Okay.
of the
Always
mailing.
get the FTR 150.
Yes.
Just what time do you want them set in the morning?
I think when we did the general election, because the polls opened at 7, we had it start at like 6,
6, I think, yeah,
like 6:15.
yeah.
And then we had it start up again at like 7:30 because the polls closed at 8.
Right.
All right. All right.
So that's what we did for the general election.
Okay.
And we approved the times for the early voting, the same as the town hall.
Right.
Okay.
The Thursday and Friday, 8:30 to 4,
Okay.
same hours as the town hall is open.
Chris,
Okay.
I'll blame you for this.
I didn't get all that stuff in the packet. Did I not get a packet?
Yeah, you sent
Where
it.
is it? You sent it to me?
She emailed it.
In an email. Oh, in an email. I got rid of 450 emails. And I still have 300.
You better get to work getting through those emails.
I mean, every day it's the same
You
thing.
bet my wife, I said, did you delete that? She's done everything on it.
So the poll workers are all set.
Yeah.
We've also, Christine has sent them the training that they need to go through. It's online training as it was for the last election.
Okay.
Um,
And how many altogether, Christine? It's okay, I'll read it. I'll get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
12 over the 3 days.
Now
For-
then, to machine delivery. You go somebody, yeah.
We're getting to that.
We're getting it.
We're getting to that.
We're getting there.
The next thing is more important, the poll workers for their coffee and meals.
Oh, yeah, and donuts.
So,
And donuts.
so we don't expect anything for the Thursday and Friday, but
Yeah.
for the Saturday election, that's up to you to decide what you want to offer.
Which restaurant we'd like to go with the meals.
How much money we got?
Whatever it takes. Well, let's go back to the donuts first. Didn't we decide no donuts because people brought their own stuff?
I think what happened last time was because Michelle McGaw had also had
Yeah.
stuff delivered. It was redundant.
Mhm.
I doubt we will have that this time.
Yeah,
So something just to keep in mind.
Okay.
I think for the March 2nd bond election referendum, I think you had, I don't think we had coffee.
We just
had
had
coffee?
coffee. We just had coffee.
this time you only got one polling place.
Right, it's only at the high school.
Yeah,
So you can have donuts or donut
And
bowls
how
if you
many-
want.
How many poll workers will be there on Saturday?
On Saturday.
yeah.
So if we do like a dozen donuts and coffee, I think that would be sufficient.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I will do that.
Good woman.
Yeah, hey, I can,
Okay, so the other is doing the coffee and donuts.
mhm,
Yeah.
at the high school, and it's just one coffee.
Yeah.
And
One dozen.
And 1 dozen donuts, and I'll talk to, what her name, I may pick up some nuggets, what do they call them? The munchkins,
Munchkins.
because people like that, they don't have to take the whole donut.
That's
A
very
mix,
true.
yeah.
Okay, very good.
So now we have the
And I have
meals.
to, you have it there by, what, 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that'd be nice.
Okay.
Okay,
So how about the meals?
We've done traditionally in the past, was it family ties?
Well, we've done Four Corners. Grill,
Yeah.
Corners
and
too.
We've done McGovern's as well.
Right,
Yeah,
that's right.
but we don't really, there's no advantage to Four Corners Grill because they're
Right.
not at the Amicable Church.
Mhm.
yeah.
So we're just the high school.
So it's just eight meals.
Although
And
actually
staff-
Four Corners
the
is
staff
closer
here
to the
too,
high
yeah.
school.
Is it?
It's closer than family ties, I think.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
We'll do whatever you guys want to do.
well, I think we've customarily used Family Ties and McGovern's.
Yeah,
We used Four Corners Grill because we had that polling place open in that part of
Right.
town.
Right.
So maybe we should decide between whether we want to do Family Ties or McGovern's. Or split it as we do sometimes.
Yeah.
How many meals are we talking for the office people?
8, you said.
Maybe, yeah, was gonna stay in here at least 4.
Well, so that's 12 altogether?
Mhm.
I don't know if you want to do it. We could do 6 and 6, you know? Yeah.
yeah,
Spread the wealth.
it's okay with me. Spread the
Does
wealth.
that sound okay to folks?
Mhm.
Sound reasonable?
Right.
Yeah.
So McGovern's and Family Ties.
Yeah.
Okay,
Now, what do you, who's got the menu? You, Christine, you gonna take care of the menu?
I'll take care of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, how are we going to get them there?
I would be willing to help out with that.
Yeah, I'll,
Yeah, I'm sure even I could lend a hand too.
you can't taste them on the way though.
I promise not to.
Okay.
Uh,
So
If I do, you get to call my trainer and tell him what I did.
so the next item
Okay.
is the delivery of the equipment.
Yeah, that's what I
Um,
just,
That's coming on Wednesday.
okay.
So they're being delivered on
What's the
Oh,
date?
my goodness, for
the
Saturday?
14th.
July 14th.
So July 14th is the delivery of the equipment. I believe they're going to be delivered by 2. And then they'll be picked up on Monday, July 19th. I believe in the morning.
Mhm.
So that's all lined up.
Yeah. If you need any help, Christine, I'll be available.
Is there any other items?
Yeah, we got
Minutes, not the minutes.
approval of minutes, June 11th. June 11th.
No, I was just saying if there was any other
Oh.
update for the FTR.
Okay.
I think that was it.
And then Chris is going to take care of the 7 o'clock meeting. It'll be Zoom to open.
7 a.m. We're opening the polls and then, so
Right, so-
we'll take care of getting that Zoom information out
Okay.
and then posting agendas for the meeting.
And then if we need another one for the July 2nd, we'll have that one. then.
Right.
Okay.
So the next item, as you said, it was the approval of the minutes
Mhm.
of the June 11th
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Ready for a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Make a motion that the minutes of June 11th, 2021 be accepted as read.
Okay.
Seconded.
And approve.
Aye.
Okay, aye.
Can I make a comment on the minutes?
Sure.
The playtime at the polls didn't have enough.
Lack of interest.
Yeah, and through the lack of interest, they're scrubbing the program. I was the only person that called to be involved in it. And so they just
God bless you.
canceled, I know, but he took my name. So anyway, that's a non-issue program.
So I think you still have to vote.
Yeah. you
Yeah.
do.
We had
Yeah, you
Paul.
haven't voted yet on the minutes.
Oh, I guess, okay.
Yay or nay?
Yay, yay.
So is that a yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
definitely. And this is just a sideboard thing,
No, no, it's not on the agenda.
not on the agenda. not
Sorry.
even as a-
That was the last item on the agenda. Sorry.
Oh, gosh.
Does anyone have anything to bring up what we've bid on tonight? Won't say anything. No. Andrea,
I am all set, thank you.
Deanna,
Ready to go.
need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
You know you need a motion.
Huh?
Are you making a motion?
Yeah,
No, see,
Andrea.
somebody made it, and I just said
Oh,
second.
you can make the motion, Bobby?
No,
I didn't think so.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
okay.
Second.